Jolly good. So yeah, thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. As I say, we're going to have a look at Sage 200 Workspaces today. My name's Simon Favag, and I'm joined by Simon Davidson, two Simons, and Simon Davidson is going to take you through all the nice and wonderful features of Workspaces, how they can help day to day, how they can sort of streamline processes, and so on. If we just pop to the next slide, please, Simon. So yeah, who are we? Experience. So we Experience Group. We drive business efficiencies through digital transformation. And how do we achieve this? Pop to the next slide. So there's four kind of key pillars as we see them to our business. Four key areas where we work with businesses, and the ERP is very much Sage 200. CRM, it's a module within Sage 200, or there are other systems out there such as Microsoft Dynamics CRM, which we offer a great deal. Cloud and managed IT. And we drive those business efficiencies through kind of joining these elements together. A good example of that is something like Office 365 and Sage 200. The two modules are working closer and closer together with every new release of Sage 200. We've now got integration between Sage 200 and what used to be called Microsoft Flow. It's now Power Automate. And what you can do with things like that is sort of put a purchase invoice on to Sage 200, or create a new purchase ledger account on Sage 200, and that can then route through an approval process completely outside of Sage using Power Automate. So it can send an email to an individual in the organization. They can approve or reject whether that new supplier should be set up, for instance. And then once approved, it can then feed back into Sage and take the supplier off hold, as an example. So systems are nowadays much more about not being silos or independent applications that don't talk to each other. It's much more about how we can join things up, streamline processes, make things much slicker and easier. And obviously in this day and age, with many more of us working from home in the current climate, those kind of integrations are much more key to how we work day to day. But yeah, the plan for today is to look at Workspaces, it's sort of native functionality within Sage 200. A fantastic tool. It could have, well, I'm not going to tread on Simon's toes, but it's a real beneficial way of how you can navigate and use data in the system. We can also connect to external data, such as websites and so on, but I'm not going to tread on Simon's toes. Just a couple of sort of housekeeping elements. Please feel free to ask questions. If you can pop those through the question panel, and if okay, we'll pick those up at the end and just go through any questions that arise. And we are recording this session today, so I hope that's okay with everybody, and we will send out the recording of the session to all attendees once it's been done and sort of downloaded to the system. So yeah, thank you all. I'll hand over to Simon, and yeah, we'll catch up with you again for questions and such.
Well, thank you very much, Simon, and welcome everyone. So today's exercise is on Workspaces, and I'm just going to move over to my demo environment. So I'll change the screen there and move that to full screen so we can see a bit more of what's going on. Okay, so what are Workspaces? I'm actually a consultant as well. I go out and implement Sage 200. So I often explain Workspaces as the Death Star. And anyone who's familiar with Star Wars will know what I'm talking about. Those that are unfamiliar with Star Wars, just bear with me on that one. But anywhere you see in Sage 200 a globe that looks like this, that is called a workspace. And I refer to it in training as the Death Star. Now, they actually work very well, so it's nothing like the Death Star in reality, but they are actually very, very useful things. And what I tend to find is clients will underutilize this area, and they're there. Please take advantage of them, have a play around. You can't do any damage unless you put some transactions on incorrectly, of course. Right, so let's move on to Workspaces. Now, every module in Sage 200, and by module I mean sales ledger or purchase ledger, they have a workspace area. So I'm just going to move to sales ledger, for example, and where you'll find the workspaces is typically under the sales inquiries area. So under here we see accounts, current transactions, archive transactions, credit control. Again, we see the Death Star, so you'll see that in your system. And anywhere, I think from 2013 version onwards, we'll have the workspaces in the system. Now, just as a word of advice, if you don't see them, don't panic. You're likely to be on the latest version or reasonably later version of Sage. it may be just a permission. So have a chat to your Sage 200 administrator and ask him or her basically to allow you access to the workspaces you can look at. So very quickly, system administration, those that are system administrators will be familiar with this area. And let's just quickly have a look at permissions. And what you'll see is Workspaces is actually a separate area in its own right. And under here are all the different workspaces that you can have a look at. Your system administrator will actually give you access to the ones that you can. Okay, so introduction to Workspaces. What do they look like? Well, let's have a look at current transactions. So we're in the sales ledger and we're moving down to current transactions, and we're going to take a peek. So what you see is a Sage 200 workspace. It's written in web language, and these are typically the workspaces that you will see if you are accessing Sage 200 by or using a web license. So you'll see this area, see various panes. Often they'll have 2 or 3 panes within the workspace, and they'll show you information pertaining to the area of Sage that you are in. Now, for example, in this one here, I'm actually looking at all the sales ledger transactions in my system, within my company, I should say. Now, that list will be different for you. You'll have different transactions in there, but typically you're starting off with all the information in the system, and it's up to you to use the workspace to find the information that you need to look for. So the key thing with workspaces, they're an aid, they're a way of inquiry. They are useful for analyzing information, and a lot of people don't realize they can actually be used for carrying out tasks within Sage 200. And by tasks, I'm referring to what we call actions. An action could be raising an invoice. It could be dispatching stock. So it very much depends on what role the person has, and obviously what functions are available within a workspace to action. So a workspace will provide little quick search areas. These are the little boxes at the top of the screen that I'm clicking on here. And these fields allow you to search for information very quickly. They're called quick filters. And by quick filters, I can search for all the current transactions in my sales ledger from the time that Sage 200 was implemented. Now, very quickly, I can start typing without pressing return or enter, and I'm just typing in LON. So it's filtering the information as I type. And if I'm in particular searching for LON 006, I'll just carry on typing in that code. And straight away, I've searched for all the current sales ledger transactions for customer LON 006. Now, looking at the bottom right-hand corner of the top pane, so just moving over to the screen on the right-hand side, you'll see that I'm viewing one record, or screen number 1, showing 25 records of 220 transactions. So there's 25 different screens of the top information that I can navigate to. In total, there are 220 transactions that match my criteria that I've searched for. It tells me here, that's just on the right-hand side here. Now, if I was actually wanting to use my workspace to find all the credit notes I've actually raised for this particular customer, I don't need to exit and go to somewhere else in Sage. I can do that all within the screen, within the same workspace. Let's show you how. I can just type in credit. Now, very quickly, I've gone from all my transactions in the customer ledger to just the transactions for LON 006 and narrowed it down to just the credit notes. That's taken me longer to explain than it has actually to search. So it is a very good search criteria, which will allow you to search on multiple things at once. For example, I've searched on code. Let's go back to that one there. So it's LON 006. It's allowed me to search on credit note or credit. And I could search on other things in different columns if I need to. You can add additional columns to the different panes within a workspace, up to those that are available within the system. Now, through customization, we can amend the workspaces to provide additional choices, but that's outside of today's scope, unfortunately. However, it often provides lots and lots of columns of data that you can actually search and display. Now, I'm going to remove these search criteria, and now I'm back to displaying 10,665 potential transactions in my sales ledger. So you can actually see very quickly, we've gone from a very high level view, potentially of all the transactions. And if I did actually want to flick from page to page, there's 427 pages of information I could actually have a look at. But in reality, you will narrow it down to what you're looking for. I've trained directors, I've trained different staff at different levels, and I'll tell you what, people pick up workspaces very, very quickly. It's pretty much the same sort of way of driving a web search tool, for example, like Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo if you fancy using that search engine. So Workspace is extremely easy to use, great for people that do inquiry, analysis, and actually, as I said before, performing some sort of function activity. I'm going to show you more about those activities or actions later on in the session today. So far I've given you a bit of a heads up as to what workspaces are, the good old Death Star. I've also talked about how to navigate to those workspaces, which you can find them under the inquiries area within each module. And I've also started to show you some of the benefits of using workspaces in Sage 200. I've got a lot more juicy information and things to show you in this session, so I think you'll actually leave today's exercise thinking, oh, I think I'll give these workspaces a go. So what else can you do? Well, there's an area you can go to and to actually see all the workspaces available that you've got access to, and that's called Workspaces. It's a separate menu option, usually at the bottom of the Sage 200 menu. And by left clicking on here, it gives me a list of all the areas that Workspaces exist for. So today, because of obviously limited time, you've got your day job to do. I need to go on with other things as well. And I'm just going to show you Sales Ledger and a few sales order processing workspaces, just to whet your appetite of things to look forward to seeing. So let's have a look at sales order processing. By left clicking on that heading or that area, I can see on the right all the different sales order workspaces available to me. The first one I really want to show you is actually the sales document status workspace. You don't really want to say that too much in a hurry. Let's have a look and see what that actually looks like. So this workspace obviously concerns sales orders. So anyone out there listening today that use sales order processing or the commercials module within Sage, this would be something that you'd be interested in looking at, I'd imagine. This workspace gives you lots of good information about the status of your orders, whether they're completed, invoice numbers, document numbers from customers, how much they're for, and you can see a nice little pipeline picture graphically of where those orders are at, whether they are to be allocated, dispatched, invoiced, and so forth. We can also see in this particular workspace any analysis codes that you've got set up in your Sage 200 system. In this example, this demo data from Sage, I can see that we've got a sales area set up, and I could search on all the sales orders for North, for example. Other columns are available. I'm going to show you how to access those. And in this particular workspace, I've got 3 panes or areas of information to see. I can see on the left-hand side a list of sales orders. Here's my sales order number, sales order date, and so forth. This one here will also include sales order returns. Down the bottom, we have an additional pane that shows you the individual sales order lines, the actual stock items or comment lines that you've added to each sales order. So I can actually go through my sales order list. I can find a sales order that I'm interested in having a look at. And just by clicking on it, I can see straight away what sales order lines have been included on that order. Really quite useful. Not only that, I can actually export this data, to Excel, and I can do that a number of ways. I just click on Export at the top, and I can select All to Excel. Very much like the list views in Sage 200, the standard list views. Workspaces, just to give you a comparison, workspaces are very much like list views, but I would say a lot more powerful. Just by the fact that you can, on the fly, change your search criteria and really drill into the information that you're searching for. Quite a lot easier than list views. So that's export, just to whet your appetite there. So on the right-hand side, I can actually see, in this case, document detail. So on that particular sales order that I've clicked on, which is document number 1315, I can see information about the warehouse used. I can see the goods amount of the sales order, exchange rate. In this case, it's the euro invoice. And I can see who it was taken by and so forth. Not only that, I can show a lot more. Left click on where it says document details. So see the two little arrows pointing downwards, just here. That tells me that I've got different options I can pick from. So I can actually go and say, let's have a look at invoice history. Okay, well, that particular order was invoiced out in one invoice, 1308 on the 3rd of September 2019. Fantastic. What else can it tell me? It can tell me when it was dispatched. Okay. All on the same date and by user number 3. And apparently all those individual dispatches have been invoiced, by the way. So you can start seeing that this workspace could be something quite useful for your sales order dispatch person or your office staff member who's responsible for dispatching stock. It gives you a very quick way of going into your system, drilling into the information that you need, finding the order that you want, and seeing what has happened to it and what's left to process on it. So that's dispatches. I can see profit and I can see payment information. So that's just to give you an example of the information that I can actually see for these orders. And there's actually more. So I can add additional columns to this list view. I can show additional information. But before the call today, I've added a whole range of different columns to the workspace, and I've added things like sales area, added salesperson. Those are 2 analysis codes used in this demo data, and I've added all the individual columns, for example, like available for dispatch, percentage, dispatch received to be invoiced, credited, and so forth. Invoices to be posted. So I've added all these different columns, and those are columns I can search on. So if I wanted, for example, to find an order, or say I wanted to find all the orders a particular customer has ordered from us, all I would need to do is either put a customer code in here, for example, ABB. That's one of our favorite customers in the demo data. That's Abbey Retail. So straight away, I've actually seen that this customer has purchased purchased stock from us 82 different occasions, 82 different orders, 3 of which apparently are live, and the rest look like they're completed. From here, I can look up certain information, I can carry out different actions, and I can pick one of those live orders, for example, right click, and I can perform an action. And this is what I mentioned before about processing. You can use workspaces to process actions, activities, functions within Sage 200. So it could be an order that is waiting to be dispatched. So in which case I can come into that workspace, pick the order, and confirm goods dispatched. Likewise, I could confirm goods received for a sales order return. If it's a case of wanting to allocate stock, I could potentially allocate stock as well. Now, not only can you perform actions, you can actually go from one workspace to another. So from this workspace, I can go into customer account inquiry, or I can go to sales document inquiry if I so choose. So it's almost like jumping from one place to another. So you've seen how I can type in Abby. If I wanted to search on all the orders that were placed, maybe on the 6th of February, because that was a particular date that I'm interested in looking at, then I can type that in. Oh, apparently there's only one order processed on that date. So you get the idea how flexible they can be. Now, that's something that's a sales document status list. That's just one workspace. I'm going to show you a few more, but before I do, let's show you how to add additional columns and actions so you can actually drive your workspaces more and more. Okay, let's give it a go. So if you are in Sage 200 and you're keeping up with me, then basically go into a workspace, right click on the column headings anywhere and select column selector. Left click on there. That will then give you an option or two options. On the right hand side of that list is all the columns that are currently visible, in other words showing. All the columns on the left, which tend to be analysis codes that I'm not using, and a whole bunch of different other fields, can be selected for display. So for example, I'll move down the list and I want to see requested delivery date. All I need to do is left click on the little plus, and that will move it down to the bottom of this area here on the visible columns. If I left click on that and drag it up to the top or close to the top and let it go where I want that column to go, just about here. And all I do is repeat that exercise for any additional columns. So I think I might have total VAT value as well. And I'll add that to the list and drag it up somewhere where there's a value. Let's put it there. So that's how you move columns around in a workspace. Unfortunately, you can't drag and drop them from the front screen. Okay, if you try, it doesn't do anything. It's also worth noting at this point, you can sort the workspace columns or rows simply by left clicking on the column heading. So I can sort them by order number, whatever column I've got showing. I can sort by date, so I can see what orders the customer's placed in a chronological order. And by hovering over, in this case, the status pipeline, I can actually see that this particular order that I'm hovering over is to be allocated 100%. So there are all the different columns that I could search on. That just gives you a bit of an example of how you can add additional columns to a workspace. Now, the choices that you're limited to are those that are on the left-hand side, hidden columns. So you can't add any more columns other than the ones that are showing on the left-hand side. If you do have a bespoke requirement, please have a chat to your account manager, and we, in most cases, I should say, are able to change workspaces around. So let's cancel from here. You can also right-click on the column heading and add a new column to the left of where you clicked. You can actually add a new column to the right of where you've clicked as well. Now, other things you can do. Well, you can search on, and I'm just going to use another example here. I'm just going to pop over to a different workspace, still in the sales order processing area, but I'm actually having a look in this case for sales document line inquiry. Sales document lines are basically a workspace designed to show information down to the order line level. So that is very much around line by line reporting, as opposed to using a workspace over the sales order header or just the sales order in general. Let's just show you what I mean by that. So let's click on sales document line inquiry. You probably noticed by now, because the screen hopefully is refreshed for you, is that you've got an item code showing. So what you're seeing here is all the individual order lines that have been raised and all the orders that you've created from the time that you started Sage. So it becomes a very valuable source of information. It may be useful for sales staff or marketing staff to look up a particular stock code and see, is it something that you want to carry on stocking? Do you sell a lot of that? Or how often do you sell it? It might be that you actually want to see how many times people have returned a part. So you'd be searching for all the sales order returns. But for this exercise, I've got a burning desire to find out how many times we've sold a particular part called a tile grey 10 by 10. So how do I do this? Well, obviously I'll come into this workspace, it's at sales document line inquiry, and I go into the item code field. I'm going to start typing in tile. I can see the format of this, the item code has got a backslash or forward slash. I keep on getting the two confused. Let's put that in and start typing in, it's a grey. Now, just by typing in that limited information, I've gone from all items sold down to 402 items sold from the beginning of this demo data. So very, very quickly, I've narrowed this down to a subset of the data. Now, to think about searching for something online through Google or Bing, you start off searching the entire internet, and you're trying to find 2 or 3 pages of information that you want to locate. This is sort of the same process. So I've actually searched for this part. I want to find out when we started selling this part. So I want to search or look for a date field. Here we go, document date. I'm going to sort that. And now I've sorted this into ascending order. And I can actually see that I started selling this part on 1st of June 2018. Just by going down to the bottom of the list, I can see that the last order apparently was raised for the 19th of the 2nd, 2019. If someone was asking me a little bit more specifically, how many times did we sell this part to a Euro customer? You might be scratching your head a little bit at this stage. You think, okay, well, can I use this workspace for that? Well, yes, you can. Euro or currency is actually a field you can display on a workspace. And for today's exercise, I've actually done that. So to the right-hand side, I think, or was it to the left? I've actually added currency. I think I have. It might be that it's actually just, let's see, maybe the currency is over here, customer code, moving to the right, and here we go. Here's the currency column. So if I was asked, the question was, how many times do we sell this part to a Euro customer? I could just type in here Euro. In fact, I don't actually have to type the whole thing in there, because I can just type in EUR and I don't have any other currency set up in my system other than Euro. So looking at the number of records returned, I've actually sold 22 individual lines of this product to Euro customers between the 1st of June and the 19th of February 2019. So very quickly you can go from a large data set to a very narrow data set. So workspaces are very useful for starting off large and fine-tuning it and searching for something a little bit more granular. So I am really searching for a product invoice that I sold. It was actually invoice number 5057. Okay, so can I actually get it from this workspace? The key thing with Workspaces is become familiar with the options of data that you've got available. So in other words, see what Sage has come up with by standard, right click on the column selector and actually have a look at the various columns that you can choose from. So in this case, is invoice number a option? It doesn't look like it. So that means I'd actually have to branch off to a different workspace to find that. So let's have a look. Let's just flip back to Workspaces for a second and back to sales order processing. And we can see that I've got sales document inquiry. It'll either be this workspace or sales document status workspace that I want to go to, but for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to go to the first one. So what can I see now? I've got sales order documents. Do I have the information here? That's a very small workspace. Can I see the information that I want to search on? For example, 5057. Don't know. Let's have a look. So I'm just going down the list of hidden columns. No, nothing's there. And it's not a field that I can search on there. So what I want to show you is really sort of the process that you go to find the workspaces that are suitable for the type of inquiry that you want to conduct. So sales order workspaces tend to be driven more, focusing more on sales orders, obviously, and invoicing, for example, 5057 that I'm trying to find, is actually an invoice. So I would tend to be looking under invoicing workspace. So that's the process that you need to go through. And I just wanted to walk you through that so you become familiar with the sort of step-by-step process that you've got to go to. Now, over time, you'll actually become familiar with the workspaces that are available, and you won't necessarily have to go through all those steps to find the right one. So, cancelling out of here, let's pop over to the invoicing area. Now, I can go to the workspaces this way. I just want to give you a different way of doing this. And I want to go down to inquiries. So, let's have a look. Workspaces processing. Now this workspace, this one here doesn't actually have any separate areas here. So let's just go back to my workspace option here, invoicing. And that's, for me, sometimes going back to the central source is actually the best way of finding the workspace I want. And sales invoice and credit inquiry, yeah, that looks like the one I want. So in this workspace here, I can actually see that it's got the invoice and credit number. Now to find invoice 5057 will take you a matter of seconds. Let's show you how. It's done. So obviously there's a reprint option under sales order processing that you can go and reprint an invoice, but I'm just showing you the benefits of workspaces and how you can use them to find information out very, very quickly. Now, this workspace is focusing on invoice and credits, obviously, and looking at the bottom pane down here, we can actually see information, for example, profit analysis, and also sales documents. So by changing it to sales documents, I can actually see that for this invoice, it relates to order number 5103. Now, from this order, remember, I can actually perform an action, and I can go to, for example, the workspace sales document inquiry. Let's do that and actually show you what happens. That will now go to this workspace, and now you can actually search on whatever you need to search on. So it's just driving from one workspace to another. So from here, I'm just going to show you what's else on our agenda using the action selector. So, okay, let's go to sales order processing. Now, fact, probably this one here, this actually might be the one I want, because basically from what I want to show you now, I want to perform an action. Now, an action is something, some sort of processing, something that you do in Sage. For example, allocating stock, it could be dispatching stock and so forth, producing an invoice. So right click on here, actions, and I could confirm goods dispatched. And this one here, there's no stocks to be dispatched. So other things you can do, actions and invoices. You can create an invoice, actually not the one I want. I want to print an invoice. So from a sales order, you can actually generate an invoice. And there's no invoice ready to be printed for that. So this particular workspace might not be the one that I really need for this exercise. So again, it's just becoming familiar with the workspaces available. So let's pop back to our workspace central area or launching pad here, workspaces, and move back to sales order processing. The good workspace I find to use whenever you're doing lots of actions or as a launching pad for carrying out processing tasks is actually use the sales document status workspace. It's one of my favorites. So I've gone back into the workspace. It has actually remembered my quick filter, but by the way, these quick filters will disappear next time you come back into Sage, into this workspace. So I'm just backspacing and removing that filter. So what I want to do now is look at processing an order. So all these orders here that I'm showing are completed. So if I only want to see the live orders, then I'll just type in live. So straight away, I've reduced the data set. And these orders here are quite current. And they're basically 4 data because of the sales demo data here. And I can pick one of these orders and perform an action. Now, looking at our pipeline status, this one here is available for dispatch. Now, depending on the size of your monitor, you may actually want to show this column a bit more to the left, so it's a bit more visible. So you could actually do this by, again, right-clicking, column selector, and finding that column, so it's called value status pipeline indicator, and moving it up a little bit closer to the top. Click on OK, and job's done. So moving to the left, we can actually see that indicator now. It's a bit more informative. I can see where my orders are at. I can see that these are all waiting to be allocated. So it's nice of Sage, they left a lot of stock to be allocated, quite handy for demos. So I could actually right click on this order, actions, order processing, sorry, just went a little bit too quick there, order processing, and allocate stock. Sage will go through and allocate what it can, and it's allocated all those 4 stock items. Fortunately, I've got the stock in hand, or on hand, and it's done it automatically for me. Fantastic. Now from here, I can actually go and refresh the screen, and you see that that actually is now moved on. Now, if I want to perform what happens after allocation, I want to perform a dispatch, then I can go into actions and confirm goods dispatched. Fantastic. So I could say, right, this went out yesterday, apparently 11th of May 2020, and I dispatched this quantity of stock. Yep, I'm happy with that. Done. Save. That is now dispatched. And my little nice dispatch note will pop up on the screen, and I could print this off or email it or whatever the case is. Job done. Let's refresh the workspace, and you see my little pipeline indicators moved on, and I've now got 90% of this order waiting to be invoiced. Now, for those that don't use commercials or sales order processing, just a point there, it goes through a particular cycle of processing, orders taken, as stocks allocated, dispatched, invoiced. follows a set routine. So I could actually, as my job, come in here and now print an invoice. And I haven't actually left this workspace at all to do all these tasks. This is why I mentioned about finding the right workspace that works for you. Now, this workspace is ideal. I can't recommend it more than enough for those that wanting to do sales order tasks. So it's come up with a print invoice screen. I'm now going to set the invoice date to, well, actually I'll leave it to today, print it off, and invoice printed. Perfect. So I've shown you how to perform actions. And one thing I need to show you, which is number 4 on the agenda, is action selector. So you may want to change what happens if you double click on an item in your workspace, and that's the default action. And in this case here, it's come up with an alert, probably because the default action is actually amend order. So let's show you how you can change your default actions. Right click on the column headings anywhere along the top, action selector. Down here on the bottom right hand corner, we've got the default action. So if I click on a sales order, what will happen? I want it to open up the amend order screen, so amend details. Now, you've got different options here. Double click could mean that you want to go and allocate stock, and that could be different for different users. So that's the default action, just here. If you want to change what actions are displayed on the menu, you can actually change them here. So all the actions are currently displayed when you go to the actions menu. And if I don't want to show something on the actions menu, maybe you never need to do sales order returns, then I could actually remove that, I think. No, I can't. I can't remove that item. So here, what's displayed on the toolbar, along the top underneath the heading of the workspace, you've got different options: amend details, actions, reports, export. These are the displayed actions. If I want to perform stock allocations quite often, I'll add that to the menu here. And I might want to amend the order status quite often, so I'll add that too. When I'm done, just click on save. And now you've got some different options appearing at the top. So if I click on an order, I can now go and amend that order just by simply clicking on the top. Really, really handy. And so that's how you can use the action selector. So an action, just to recap, right click, actions. Do I want to print an invoice? Do I want to print an order acknowledgement? Do I want to dispatch stock? Do I want to amend my order? And so forth. So have a look. Not only get a familiarity with what workspaces are available, but also have a look at what actions are available. Can I use this workspace for my staff? As I said, it's often a very underutilized area, perhaps because maybe trainers don't focus on enough. Maybe things are forgotten, I don't know, but please have a look. Just be conscious about actions, because if you're in the live company and perform an action, you are entering a live transaction into the system. So just be conscious about that. Okay, filtering display data, I think I've covered that well and truly, except for one key area. Click on no filtering at the top. You can create a new permanent filter. That's the equivalent of raising or creating a filter on your list view. Let's quickly do that. I think we've got a few minutes left. Left click, create new filter, Simon's order filter. Obviously, you'd give it a bit more of a sensible heading. I want to add a condition, and I want to show all my orders that are live. Add. You can add a different conditions, and you can make it match all conditions or any condition. So it's an or situation. Let's change our heading to Simon's live water filter, and save and close. So straight away, I've created a custom permanent filter that will not go away when I exit Sage. And then when I come back into the workspace, I've got the choice of either using the filter as it is or going back to no filtering. So left click on no filtering, it removes the filter I've set up. Think about analysis codes, think about all these slicing and dicing, analysis of key stock items, key customers, monitoring orders that have been raised in the week, month. You get the idea. There's lots of ways you can actually use a workspace. Really, really handy options. Now, I've talked about how to change the panes of data. So anywhere you see the little down arrow, explore the options. Again, the sales document status workspace is ideal for this because you can show payment details, invoice history, what's been dispatched. Think about people on the phone answering customers' phone calls. Someone ringing up, has my order been dispatched? Yep, good example. You can on the fly search through a workspace. Okay, I think I've covered pretty much everything on the agenda. I'm just thinking if there's anything else that I need to show you on here. I'll just show you what the export looks like. Selected to Excel means if I just want to export these orders out here, export selected to Excel. It opens up a new Excel file, appropriately named with a date and time, so it's quite handy. So click on open, and here is my workspace. Okay. That's export selected. Obviously, export all is just exports everything out. And reports, you can run certain reports from here. They're not all the items on the report menu, but it's just the key ones. So don't forget that. Some workspaces are auto-refreshing, so they're refreshed. You've probably seen the screen flicker before. That's the automatic refresh happening. I don't think all the workspaces are auto-refreshing, but certainly this one is. Anything order status. I've shown you how to add additional actions on there. Changing the workspace to show more records at once. So I can change that to showing 250 records. Show you 250 records at the top here. Just means the workspaces will take just a little bit longer because they have to bring back 250 records from your SQL database at once. So hopefully today I've given you a good example of how workspaces, or what workspaces are, how to navigate to them, the benefits of using workspaces to find ad hoc data, to find information that you're searching for from a very top level down to a very granular level. I'd really recommend you explore them because, as I said before, they are very much underutilized, and I would certainly like to see clients use them more. Just be aware of using actions and live data. Workspaces actions are controlled by user permissions, so just something to be aware of. And that is pretty much it, I think.
Thank you, Simon. That's great. It took me, when I've been using Sage, it took me a while to sort of get my head around workspaces, but what I kind of the light bulb moment for me was just seeing how when you use sort of a traditional inquiry screen, you have to sort of choose a customer and then search for an invoice, for instance, or something like that. But the ability to use a workspace to sort of search across all customer records or supplier or stock, it just makes it a much more sort of flexible way of looking for things, really. And the other things to sort of mention, guys, I don't know if you're all aware, but to Sage, with everything that's going on at the moment, Sage have actually added 4 connected users to everyone's account. So you should have them available to be able to switch on. And a connected user has access to workspaces, so they can access them in a browser. They don't need to be accessing it via Sage. You can do it outside the office, for instance, if the right kind of settings are done on your server. So it's a nice little sort of free giveaway. It's for 90 days, but it's a nice little sort of free giveaway from Sage for a period of time that allows people to kind of use those workspaces from both in the office and outside, but just kind of sharing information on your Sage system. But yeah, thank you everybody for your time today. Any questions anybody has? There was one that came through earlier, actually just looking about can the columns be auto-sized so they wrap around the content rather than being equally spaced? So I think on the workspace, obviously all the columns are the same size. Is there any way of making the columns different sizes, a bit like you can do in Excel, Simon?
I'm not aware of any auto sizing, but I think any change that you make to the column sizes, I think a memory should actually stick. So next time you pop into the workspace, in theory, they should take. So we can actually test that for a moment. Let's back into our workspace and just change the column widths. I'll move that down back to 25 rows just to make it a little bit more responsive. Let's move that down a little bit there. Cool. So let's just have a look and pop back workspaces. And so it's remembered it there by going back in the same session. And then it's just a case of, does it work if you go back in Sage? And often things like this, you just have to test it and see for yourself if it actually has stuck. So workspaces, sales order processing, and document status, have they stayed small? No, unfortunately, they have actually resized. So unfortunately, no way at this stage.
And other things we've done for other customers with Workspaces is we're not restricted to just Sage data. So what we can do, and it is a bit more technical, unfortunately, so it's probably more for a business partner to do, although you guys have full access to kind of access the Workspace designer yourself, so you can certainly have a try, is you can connect Workspaces to external data. So a good example might be you have a stock workspace and you might use traceability. So you might look at a stock serial number, and then you can actually sort of click on that line in the workspace and then maybe have a sort of a hyperlink to a folder on a server somewhere where you could then see all associated documentation for that workspace. Or it might be, we used to do quite a lot where you have like a delivery workspace. So you might put a consignment number against a sales order, and then you're in a workspace, customer phones up, where's my delivery? You could highlight the sales order in the workspace, click on a hyperlink, so the URL embedded within the workspace line, and it will then take you straight through to the courier dispatch page, so you can see sort of very quickly where the delivery status is of that order. So we're not just restricted to Sage data. They are quite a nice, powerful tool. It's got that kind of a cross-system reporting, just quick access to information, and the ability to connect to other sources of data or kind of route through to other sources of data.
Yeah, good point, Simon.
Sorry, Simon.
No, good idea about other sources of data. That's certainly a very valid comment.
So yeah, hopefully a worthwhile session today, giving you a bit of an idea, a bit of a window into the world of Workspaces. As I say, quite an underused tool, but a very good little sort of a feature of Sage. And any questions or queries that come up, please feel free to drop us an email after the session, and we will certainly come back to you if we can. And as mentioned before, we recorded this session, so we will pop that out on an email to you guys in due course. And as always, if there's any chance of you giving us some feedback, we'll send out the feedback forms, and if you're able to give us any feedback, it's always much appreciated. But yeah, have a good day, everybody, and we will speak to you soon. Many thanks.
Thank you very much.